Imagine an ordinary day, a quiet morning, laughter with loved ones, people heading to work. And then, in an instant, everything shatters. Today, we're exploring the most terrifying acts of terrorism that struck without warning, left cities in ruins, and turned lives to dust. These stories aren't just tragedies, they're reminders of the lurking dangers in our world. Stay with us, because each act of terror is more chilling than the last. Terrorism isn't just an attack on people, it's an assault on our sense of safety, a blow that leaves families grieving and entire nations living in fear. These aren't mere events in history. They're moments when humanity was tested, when fear invaded places once seen as safe. Every story we're about to share will show just how far evil can reach. For the survivors, the fear never truly ends. It stays in their memories, in the nightmares they can't escape, in the silence that follows tragedy. These acts of terror don't just happen, they linger, haunting the lives of those who survived and those who lost loved ones. Remember, these aren't just stories. They're the dark shadows that people live with every day. Our first story is one that every generation knows, September 11th, 2001. A day that began like any other but ended as one of the darkest in modern history. Planes hijacked, towers falling, lives lost in seconds. Imagine being in that chaos, the world around you collapsing in dust and fire. It was a bright, clear morning in New York City, a city filled with life, love, and dreams. But at 8:46 a.m., horror struck as a plane crashed into the North Tower. Minutes later, the second plane hit the South Tower. Imagine the fear, the shock, the desperation, as people realized this wasn't an accident. Thousands of people, trapped in the Twin Towers, faced the unthinkable. Some climbed higher, searching for escape, others leaped, choosing to jump rather than burn. The sound of the collapse, the sight of people running through dust-covered streets, these are images that will haunt humanity forever. September 11th was a shockwave felt around the world. Borders tightened, security intensified, and nations united in fear and grief. This wasn't just a tragedy for America, it was a call to vigilance for the world. From that day forward, no one felt truly safe. On March 11th, 2004, the quiet morning in Madrid was shattered by a series of bombs that tore through commuter trains. Nearly 200 lives lost, over 2,000 injured, a routine commute turned into a scene of devastation. Families were torn apart, lives ended in an instant. Imagine sitting on a train, surrounded by people starting their day, and suddenly, an explosion rips through the carriage. The sound, the heat, the chaos, people screaming, bodies everywhere. For Madrid, this wasn't just an attack. It was a nightmare, a scar that would last forever. As the dust settled, Spain mourned its lost sons and daughters. Families searched hospitals, hoping for news, while the entire country grieved. The Madrid bombings reminded the world that terror could strike in the simplest moments, even in the routine of a morning commute. On September 1st, 2004, a nightmare unfolded at a school in Beslan, Russia. Armed terrorists stormed the building, taking more than 1,100 hostages, most of them children. Parents stood outside, helpless, as their children were trapped inside, caught in a terror too dark to imagine. Picture this. Parents dropping their children off at school, only to find out that terrorists have taken over. The helplessness, the terror, the desperate prayers for their children's lives. The gunfire, the screams, the air thick with fear and grief as families waited, praying for a miracle. After 3 agonizing days, the siege ended in a brutal, fiery attack that claimed over 300 lives, many of them children. Imagine the grief, the broken hearts of parents holding empty hands where their children once were. Beslan is a name that will forever be remembered with horror. On July 7, 2005, the heart of London was struck by a coordinated terror attack. Bombs exploded on the city's transit system during rush hour, leaving Londoners in panic and shock. Lives were lost, families broken, and a city left traumatized. Imagine standing on a packed subway car, hearing a deafening blast, and the sudden plunge into darkness. The thick smoke, the screams of strangers, the feeling of being trapped underground with nowhere to go. That was the horror of London on July 7th. Despite the terror, Londoners stood together. Strangers pulled each other from the wreckage, comforting the injured, refusing to let fear win. The strength and unity that followed showed that even in the darkest moments, hope can rise. In November 2008, Mumbai became a battleground as terrorists launched a coordinated attack across the city. For 4 days, the sounds of gunfire and explosions filled the air as residents and tourists were trapped, hiding in fear. This wasn't just terror, it was a siege on an entire city. Imagine being trapped in a luxury hotel, hearing gunshots and explosions echoing through the halls. The fear, the isolation, the knowledge that just outside, people are being hunted. Mumbai was held hostage, the terror lurking around every corner. Amid the chaos, stories of bravery emerged, hotel staff risking their lives to protect guests, citizens offering shelter. Mumbai showed a resilience that inspired the world. But the scars remain, forever reminding us of the terror that unfolded over those 4 days. On April 19, 1995, the heartland of America was struck by a horrifying act of domestic terror. A bomb exploded outside the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City, killing 168 people, including children in a daycare. A city was left shattered. The images of rubble, the cries of grieving parents, the haunting sight of a firefighter holding a lifeless child. The Oklahoma City bombing was a wound that ran deep, showing that terror doesn't only come from foreign threats, it can come from within. Despite the horror, Oklahoma City rebuilt, creating a memorial for those lost. The scars remain, but so does the spirit of resilience, a tribute to the innocent lives taken by hatred, and a city that refused to let darkness win. On November 13, 2015, Paris, the City of Lights, was plunged into darkness as coordinated attacks swept through cafes, a stadium, and a concert hall. Over 130 people lost their lives, and countless others were scarred forever. Paris would never be the same. Imagine being at a concert, laughing with friends, when gunfire erupts. The crowd becomes chaos, and places of joy turn to scenes of horror. The Paris attacks weren't just an assault on a city, they were an assault on the very spirit of freedom. The world mourned with Paris. Monuments around the globe lit up in solidarity, but for those who survived, the memories of that night linger, leaving a painful scar that no lights can erase. The Boston Marathon, a symbol of unity and resilience, was turned into a scene of terror in 2013 when 2 bombs exploded near the finish line. What was meant to be a day of celebration became a day of horror, leaving a city in shock. Imagine crossing the finish line, filled with triumph, when suddenly an explosion tears through the crowd. The joy turns to screams, the crowd to chaos, and lives are changed in an instant. Boston felt terror's sting but refused to let fear win. Despite the horror, Boston united. Strangers became heroes, helping the injured, and the city showed a spirit of resilience that inspired the world. Boston Strong became a symbol of courage and defiance in the face of terror. In September 2013, the Westgate Mall in Nairobi, Kenya, became a scene of horror as terrorists stormed the building, taking shoppers hostage and leaving dozens dead. People hid in fear, trapped in a place meant for shopping, laughter, and life. Imagine hiding in a store, your hand over your mouth, praying they don't find you. Hours of tense silence, broken by gunshots and screams. The terror felt by those trapped in Westgate is unimaginable, a reminder that evil can strike anywhere. Though lives were lost, Nairobi showed resilience. The community came together, offering support to survivors and honoring the lost. Westgate Mall stands as both a place of remembrance and a testament to human strength. In 2011, Norway was stunned by a double attack, a bombing in Oslo's government district, followed by a massacre at a youth camp on Utøya Island. The attack left 77 people dead, shocking one of the world's most peaceful nations to its core. Imagine being a teenager on a beautiful island, laughing with friends, when terror strikes. Nowhere to hide, only the sound of gunshots and the sight of friends falling. The survivors of Utøya are forever haunted by the horrors of that day. Norway grieved deeply but stood together, showing that even in the darkest times, love and unity prevail. The attack left a painful scar, a reminder that peace can be shattered in an instant. These stories reveal the depths of human resilience and the horrors inflicted by terror. Which story affected you the most? Let us know in the comments. And if these stories of survival and courage captivate you, hit subscribe. We have more to share, tales of tragedy and heroism that show the light and darkness within humanity. Thank you for watching, and stay safe.